pink, opaque.
Are you ready? Hello, everybody.
Hi everyone,
Welcome to
Evil Asterisk Podcast.
With Jeannie.
And Luis.
We saw
At least I saw the TV
the
Glow.
TV Glow. Okay, so the name of the movie is I Saw the TV Glow.
As a statement of fact.
It is a statement of fact, and there was a lot of glowing in this film. I have to say, if I sound like I have a stuffy nose, I actually was affected by this movie. However, I wasn't affected all the way through. I was affected at the end.
At the very end.
At the very end. Definitely interesting, a different type of movie, not what you would expect. And I will say that I wasn't even sure, and I think Luis agrees, that it was truly a horror film.
Yeah, so I don't really feel like this is a horror movie. I just don't. It's not scary. It's not creepy. It doesn't startle you. I don't think it's horror.
I think there's a little bit of creepiness. I can appreciate the aesthetic, but yeah, I agree. I'm going to read the synopsis very quickly, and it's a very mild, doesn't tell you anything really. A teenager just trying to make it through life in the suburbs is introduced by a classmate to a mysterious late-night TV show. That's it. That's all that it states. And we should also mention that the director and writer is Jane Schoenbrunn, or Schoenbrunn, not sure how it's pronounced. It definitely meets our requirements for an indie film, but again, going back to, it does bill itself as a horror drama.
Yes.
But in our opinion, I think we can both agree that it doesn't really feel like horror. There are horror elements, a few, but to me, it doesn't reach the criteria for being a horror film.
Yeah, I just don't think it fits the genre. I see it much more as a kind of a dark drama, a dark coming-of-age story, in a way.
I would call it a surreal
Surreal,
drama.
that works. I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, so not going into spoilers, basically they have these two friends. The first is just, a solo guy, in school.
He's in 7th grade.
And she's
in
ninth
9th
grade.
grade. Yeah.
And catches her reading an episode guide for a TV show that he doesn't watch because it's too late for him. He goes to bed at 10 and he knows about it.
But he's curious about it.
He's curious about it. And they develop this kind of relationship based on their love for the show. And
the show is called The Pink Opaque.
Mm-hmm. And basically she, tries to find a way with him so so he can watch an episode.
Right.
So he
because
arranges.
His parents don't let him stay up late to watch. So he has to do a little bit of subterfuge and go over to her place, but pretending he's going to a friend's house and spending the night. He goes over to her place, and we should say her name is Maddie, and the boy's name is Owen. So he gets permission to go to a sleepover. His parents don't realize he's actually going to this girl's house who's 2 years older than him. She has a friend over because she and her friend watch this show regularly, and he sees it for the first time when he's there.
Yeah, and then they, end up watching this episode together, and it kind of changes his life, and her life has already been changing thanks to this show, which showing her a different way of living, we could say, a different reality.
It's a different reality. It's a show that's also, we should talk about the aesthetic. Looks like it's sort of on Betamax or something. I think I heard that they transferred it. They had 16 millimeter and then they transferred it to Betamax or something just to make it.
And that would be Beta SP
to make
or
it
something
look,
like that.
yeah, or Beta SP.
Yeah.
To make it look, and we should also indicate that this is sort of a period piece, but this takes place in the 90s. So the show is being watched on television and has that grainy quality. And it's about two girls. Isabel is one of the girls, and there's another girl, I don't remember her name. And they fight these monsters, I guess, or they go against them. They have these special tattoos, these glowing pink, outlined tattoos on the backs of their necks.
Like little ghosts from Pac-Man.
They
That's
look
kind of
like,
what they look like.
yeah, they look like elongated Pac-Man and asymmetrical Pac-Man ghosts. So that was interesting. But again, we should mention that this didn't feel horrific at all. There's one point toward the beginning, which is within this series within the movie, because we're watching this series in this grainy television with a grainy quality in the video, but within this larger film. And there's a monster. It's an ice cream man monster that shows up.
Mr. Sprinkles, right?
And we found out the name was it Mr.
I think
Sprinkles?
it's Mr. Sprinkles, yeah.
Actually, a pretty effectively gross, disgusting looking ice cream man. I've never seen.
The only gross thing in the whole movie.
Yeah, there were a couple of other attempts to be gross, but we didn't feel that they were gross. This was the gross part. And it does happen probably within the first half hour of the film, I think, toward the latter part of the half hour.
And it's a bit of a startle, but like a not too crazy one. It was just kind of there, and you look at it and you get a little, oh wow, that's gross.
Drooling, which
he's melting,
interesting,
right?
I guess.
Yeah.
He might be melting. It was unclear,
It's an
but
ice cream
it was
man.
definitely gross looking. That's all I can say. It felt like slobber, but you're probably right. He was melting. And that was it. As far as something that really was disgusting, gross, scary horror in the sense that we would think. Now, I don't want to make us sound like, oh, we're only into monster of the week horror. That's not true. We love psychological horror. We love this feeling of dread, this feeling of tension. But we didn't get that in this film either.
And I will say that I do have a soft spot for Monster of the Week kind of horror, for low budget horror, B movies, creatures. I actually love that stuff. So I'm definitely not the best audience for elevated horror. Like
Right.
if you go a little above the Babadook for me, you lose me.
Yeah, the Babadook I didn't actually find scary, believe it or not.
Exactly. It was creepy a few times, and I think that was about it.
That was about it.
Yeah.
It's funny. Fun fact, might not even leave this in, but we do have that Babadook book. We have
We
the
have
pop-up
it.
book.
We have it.
Yeah,
It's a
that was
collectible,
kinda
probably.
cool. Yeah, definitely.
So, in non-spoiler territory, I don't know if there's a lot we can talk about in terms of that. Just
think we
maybe
can.
just the look and feel.
Yeah.
It's very moody. It has beautiful photography. Mm-hmm. There's a great use of colors, of pink, of purple, of
beautiful.
blue. It looks more expensive than it is, most
Yeah.
likely.
Which is nice.
Very professionally shot. There's no like weird little mistakes. Everything kind of works
Yeah.
together.
I didn't notice any mistakes like that, and we usually do notice that. I love the fact that everything was glowing. It is called I Saw the TV Glow, and it lived up to its name as far as the glow effect. The very first scene shows chalk art on a black background, which would be the street, and that glowed a little bit. The tattoos or the drawings on the backs of the girls' necks in the pink opaque TV series also glow when Owen is watching TV and when the girls are watching TV, and even the father at some point. You see the TV glow, and you see the effects on the face.
And it's a traditional CRT type phosphor glow, which is the way it's supposed to be.
Years later, we see Owen working in a mall or something, and then you see everything glowing outside. And then you see the projector glow when he's working in a movie theater. The use of glow happens throughout the film, which is, it's very effective.
And there's a very small element of liminal space type things, but it turns out to be minimal in this one. We thought it was going to be.
Are you saying it's minimal liminal?
Yes, it is. We were hoping it was going to be a bigger part of the whole experience, but it turns out that there was just some slight suggestions about the vibe of the school and things like that. It very
The school seemed
quickly,
deserted.
yeah,
That's why
very
it was
quickly
like
you got out of it.
But that section that you're talking about is, we started to talk about the plot earlier here, where Maddie provides Owen with videotapes, VHS tapes of the pink opaque in private in a particular area, I guess in a dark room. There was a nice sequence where Owen was walking to that dark room, and you see him walking down different hallways in the school, and there's no one around, right? I mean, I don't remember seeing any people
Yeah.
there. It was completely empty, vacant. And then he ends up in the dark room. But while he's walking, you see written in pink, in kind of a glowing...
Purple, right?
Well, the pink
It's pink?
opaque.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's walking along, and you see these pink color which is being used to describe the notes that Maddie is leaving for Owen, even a drawing of a VHS tape, different notes and different doodles and discussions of the episodes in this series within the movie called The Pink Opaque. It went on a little long, but it was an interesting concept.
Yeah, it does a lot with the look. It's an interesting movie in general.
I do want to mention a cool use of symbolism near the beginning of the movie. He was under a tent, I think. And I remember we used to have these at school. You can get under them. There's sort of like a tent that everybody was sitting under. It's multicolored. There's an interesting motif in the film where you see dome-like structures that people are inside. So whether it's a tent, whether it's a inflatable planetarium, even a snow globe, there were a number of different suggestions of being inside a dome, which almost makes you feel like you're inside a different universe. And also at the very beginning of the movie, we had a theory that this might be an alternate universe because of the way people were talking about things that didn't make a whole lot of sense in our world and that wouldn't have necessarily happened in the 90s, but we weren't really sure what that meant. This doesn't give away any spoilers. This is just something that we were wondering about because we're trying to get our minds around what type of movie this was. It was hard for us to pinpoint it. I will say again, before the spoiler section, there was a lot of wooden acting in this movie. That might have been intentional. I'm not sure, but it felt very flat affect, very dry, not a lot of emotion being expressed. And then once you kind of figure out what's going on in the movie, which we will talk about after the spoiler section, there were outbursts of emotion. But a lot of the movie tended to drag partially because of the acting. And again, it might have been intentional. There wasn't a whole lot going on in the story. You know, the parents was interesting, it was an interracial couple. The mother, who's played by Danielle Deadwyler, we had just seen her in The Piano Lesson.
Yeah.
And she was like the best thing about The Piano Lesson. We loved her as far as the acting is concerned. She's in here. She doesn't have a major role. She plays the mother. And she's married to Fred Durst. So that was an interesting combination.
I'm glad you mentioned the pacing because, yeah, in my opinion at least, there's some serious issues with pacing.
I agree.
And I think the direction itself is very static. The camera doesn't move a lot. And they keep these pregnant pauses in almost every single bit of dialogue. But instead of having some deeper meaning, we just get anything out of it. Because like Jeannie said, the characters are very flat and it's very hard to relate to anyone. No one behaves as a normal human being in terms of like, you know, seeing them going through ups and downs of everyday life. It feels very otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
And
which is why we thought, okay, you can get away with a lot if you're doing a parallel universe motif.
We realized that it was not a parallel
It's
universe.
not.
That it, other than having a TV show that obviously doesn't exist in real life,
Right.
It was just like whatever 1996 used to be.
Right. And it was more of symbolism. And that is why, and we will get into that as we move forward into the spoiler section, that is why it felt otherworldly. It felt like it was a parallel universe. But just having the flat acting didn't work for me at all. Like you said, the pacing wasn't great. There were beautiful, surreal visuals that made it really feel like an art film.
Mm-hmm.
So,
student film for me. Very clunky dialogue basically everywhere.
But I would go above the student film realm because of the visuals. I thought it was impeccably done visually.
Something in between, right?
And I don't want to say anything bad about student films. Student films can be great.
Well, I went to film school. I was part of plenty of terrible student films.
Right,
So yes.
I know. And I've also used to host a film festival where we did have a lot of student films, and some of them were great. But I don't want to diss student films. But what I'm saying is that clearly the direction, so let's say the cinematography and the color choices, the glow,
Production design.
all of that worked really nicely, but the story didn't move along in a way that was compelling at all. The dialogue was uninteresting, and the acting was wooden. So because of those elements, it was harder to pull us in. And of course, we kept watching it. We would have normally probably not kept watching it, but we did because we knew we were doing a podcast. And by the end, there was definitely a feeling of catharsis, and it got me at the very end. Did it get you? Like
No.
it got me? Okay, so you didn't get affected. At the very end, I got affected. Even though it affected me at the tail end of the movie, which I normally would not have even continued to watch to see. I have to jump to my punchline on ratings and give it a thumbs down.
Yeah, and I'll explain my rating by saying that when I mention student films usually are uneven. There's some people in the team that makes them that are incredibly talented, some people that are not. Some people that are very hardworking, some people that are not. So usually when you have a student film, unless everyone's at the top of their game and they're all going to be major stars in the future, you have things like this where the photography looks incredible, but then you have horrible writing, or you have excellent directing and terrible editing. You know, like, or everything else is great, but the sound is a nightmare. And I know because, I was there. I was there in
Yeah.
Brazil, in FAP, and I was there here in UCLA. So with that in mind, my rating is a thumbs down as well.
Let me go back to your unevenness comment because I thought that was interesting. We didn't mention a couple more things. Yes, the story left a lot to be desired. The acting was wooden. May have been intentional. I think these are good actors that were directed in a certain way. The dialogue, the writing wasn't great. But I will say that the cinematography was great. The sound mix was...
It had a really aggressive sound mix in the beginning, then it kind of quiets down a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
pretty good.
But it's pretty good, yeah.
More expensive than you would assume.
I didn't notice any editing flaws, did you?
It was just low.
Okay, yeah.
That's
but
part of
that's a
editing, but
pacing,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
So there's a pacing issue which would be related to the editing.
There
Did
was
you
a moment
see
where
something?
the kid ran to the left side of the screen and then was shown the next shot running to the right side of the screen. That bothered me.
Right. There was one shot that was in the day and then the next shot was in the night.
Yeah, he was
that
dropped by his
made
mom
me-
at someone's house, which seemed to be noon, and was standing at the door pretending that he was going to that particular house.
Right.
And then the mother drove away.
And then...
And then he took off to the left, and then the next shot had him walking to the right at night.
Exactly. That didn't make any sense, but it made me think it was the otherworldly element. And it seemed so intentional that I don't think that was an error. It might have been a bad choice, though. So that would be my thought. I was saying to you, why is it...
It was puzzling.
It's night.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Yeah. That didn't make any sense. But I think, again, it was intentional because there were so many good aspects of the editing. But I do agree. If we're talking about editing in terms of pacing, the editing was good otherwise. It was very professional other than the pacing, which may have been issues with the director wanting it to be that way. This all could be intentional. It felt elevated, as you say,
Yeah.
and the cinematography was excellent. So that's the concern. The other elements, the dramatic elements, anything that we would say would be more about the drama and the horror choices. There were horror elements sprinkled throughout, but not put there in a way that made us go, oh my gosh, I'm scared.
There was no sense of jeopardy, I guess you could say,
Right.
and there was never a real threat. There was one kind of scary-ish scene at the end where two, villains from the show kind of pop up, and you see them from
Yeah.
up close, and they're much scarier than they were
Then they looked
in the
the
TV show. By the way, the original
Pink
TV
Opaque.
show, Pink Opaque, I immediately spotted as some Buffy-esque
but
concoction.
it didn't look like Buffy. It's way
Well,
older.
it turns out that it was inspired by Buffy.
It's an older, cheesier
Mm-hmm.
show that almost looked like it was from the 70s. It didn't look like the 90s at all. That show did not look 90s.
I think it.
I thought it was a Twin Peaks inspired
as
thing.
someone who was a teen in the 90s, I can tell you it looked very much like something else, but it looked very low budget. And
Okay.
very kind of
That's what I'm saying. It looked super low budget.
Yeah.
The thing that we did in the 90s that was like, oh my gosh, we have to see it. We can't miss a show was Twin Peaks. And the way they introduced it was that the Pink Opaque is something that people watch on their televisions in a normal network
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
type of... They didn't act
It was
like
like
it was some
it was
off...
like basic cable, I think. But
Right,
yeah,
they didn't
yeah.
act like it was an off indie type of thing. It wasn't a student film, like you say. That's interesting that it was inspired by Buffy, but of course Buffy's way later. And Buffy, I mean, we're talking about a decade later, I think.
Yeah.
It didn't have that quality. And maybe this isn't about the quality, it's about the idea. But it was just two girls supposedly fighting off
Fighting evil,
monsters
yeah.
that show up. A lot of it was very esoteric. I think it's more of an art film. No, I'm talking about I Saw the TV Glow
Oh,
itself.
okay.
The movie we're talking about, not the Pink Opaque. the series within the movie. I say it is not like a student film. I understand why you said it, because you said there was an unevenness to it. But I say that it feels like an art film. And I feel like it wanted to be an art film. I don't think it was a mistaken art film. But because of that, I think a lot of people might be turned off and turn it off.
Yeah.
And don't watch it on their TV
And
or
their
whatever.
TVs won't glow.
Their TVs won't glow for long because it doesn't get to the point right away. A lot of the symbolism is buried, and it really takes someone to pay real close attention to what's going on to figure out exactly what's happening in this
Yeah, you
movie.
gotta be an archaeologist to dig out some of the metaphors.
That's a good one. So do we want to go to the spoiler
We do.
section? Okay. So we're going to do a little sound. Spoiler!
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler
Spoiler
alert.
alert!
Hey, spoiler alert!
Alert!
What?
Danger, Will Robinson.
Oh my
there we
God.
go. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
0. -1.
Bzz.
So spoilers. I don't know. There's hardly anything that's really a spoiler in this.
Well, Luis happened to know what this movie was about.
Well, I had to go dig it. I
Yeah.
had to go do some research.
And this is cheating because he and I don't normally do that, but I'm glad he did it.
It's cheating, not shitting.
I'm glad Luis did a little bit of digging to figure out what is this movie about. So Luis did a little bit of research, I guess while we were watching the movie, because he couldn't pay attention to the movie as well.
It was very slow.
It was slow. So he did a little bit of research. He was like, what the heck is this movie about? We normally don't do that, so I consider it cheating, but that's okay. I'm glad he did it. And here's what he discovered.
Well, I discovered that this whole movie is basically a trans allegory. It's about not knowing who you are, not knowing who you really are, and maybe getting some inklings and finding out, but refusing to see the truth and refusing to live in your truth.
It's about knowing there's something that is not quite right, trying to explore what that is, having this dichotomy of feeling like you belong in a universe versus you don't belong in a universe, and using this idea of the pink opaque, and the color sort of gives away a little bit, that you feel more comfortable and you're drawn to the pink opaque, which is a television series. So it's using that idea, that metaphor, for your identity. And having the tattoo or whatever it is on the back of your neck, that's a form of an ID, like an identity.
A tribal thing. almost.
Exactly. So basically, the Owen character, the main character in this, is experiencing this uncomfortable element with the world that he's in reality.
A sort of awakening.
The awakening happens because of the pink opaque, not in the real world.
And it's something that I didn't say to Ginny before, but on this pink opaque. Inside, we're all pink opaque, inside the human
Right.
body. So I think what the pink opaque means in terms of the name is that what you are deep inside. I think that that's what
We're
that's
all
supposed
pink
to mean.
inside. That's interesting. The idea is he is drawn to this series. He finds someone who knows about the series and is reading about the series, a book that talks about all the different episodes. That's interesting because that means this woman or girl, she's 2 years older than he is. She's in 9th grade, he's in 7th grade. So she's at a different stage of discovery. Her stage is, I'm reading about it. I'm trying to intellectualize it, maybe make it more cerebral to understand what I'm going through. And then is combining that with watching the show regularly.
She's watching live.
With her friend.
Yeah.
And then he comes over and watches it. The awakening is happening as he starts to learn about this show and watch this show.
Yeah, and the show speaks to him at an unconscious level, I guess. And the thing that really puzzles him is that his friend, the girl, she's saying she's going to run away because she has an abusive stepfather. And she wants him to go with her, and he doesn't. So that's the first kind of refusal of the call. Yeah, and
Whereas-
she runs away from home because of this abusive stepfather that we don't really see. We never see, I think.
Yeah.
You know, so he refuses the call there. Then she disappears.
Well, he's still going to school. He's got
But-
2 more years.
Yeah, but
she's older
but
than him.
my point is that he doesn't go with her. And then eventually years go by, 2 years, right?
The two characters don't see each other as much. Things are changing for both characters, but more so for the Maddie character, at least because they're showing her experimenting. The Maddie character, when she's in 9th grade and the boy is in 7th grade, she is wearing a particular clothing. She wears a sweater over a button-down shirt, has her hair sort of disheveled but in a ponytail and sort of going over her face. 2 years later, we see her, she looks different. She has her hair sort of undone from the ponytail. It's cascading over her shoulders. It has more of a feminine quality to it. Looks very different in a way from how she looked before. The Owen character is played by a completely different actor at that point. So when the Owen character goes from 7th grade to, I guess, 9th grade,
Ninth.
and she's now in 11th, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So he is played by a completely different actor and looks a lot older, which does happen. You know, sometimes people just grow very quickly from 7th to 9th. At that point, they haven't really been hanging out together. The relationship starts up again. And then at some point, she decides to leave home. And my feeling of her leaving home, I just see this as stages on a journey. The first part of the journey is we only see with Owen. We see Owen watching the TV,
Yeah.
getting drawn in. We see Owen observing that Maddie is reading a book on the topic, whatever topic that might be. It's about the pink opaque. That they form a pseudo friendship. And then he sees the show. So it's like, again, a journey. Now her next step is to leave home and explore herself and leave the life where she's not being understood, and maybe there was a strange situation with a stepfather
Yeah, that's how it's
being
described.
violent or something. The key point there, just my opinion, is that her next stage on her journey is to leave that life behind.
Yes.
And she wants to change her identity. We find out when she comes back, gets reacquainted with Owen again. That's 8 years later, right? She says something about that she's not Maddie. Her name is no longer Maddie.
Yeah.
And she was telling other people that. And she was telling people to bury her alive, someone that she knew to bury her alive. So she's talking about, I guess, burying her past. She has a dead name that she doesn't want anybody to talk about. She has a new name. She doesn't say what that name is.
No.
Okay.
But when she says bury me alive and she says she paid a guy to do it, it was so she could go into the pink place. That's her explaining to him why she disappeared when she did, why she was gone for so long. And she was saying, I was in the pink place. And it turns out that's real, and this world we were in before, it's not.
Right.
And she said that the only way to get there was to be buried alive. And
Right.
she paid a guy to do it who didn't know he was killing her, because actually he wasn't. But even if he was, who cares? But anyway,
Years
so she's
later.
telling the story 8
Yeah.
years later.
Right.
And she comes back and tells him about this transition she went through, basically. But we don't know
Exactly.
her new name.
There are 2 other monsters that we end up seeing later. There are 2 moments where I believe we are supposed to be scared because these are monsters as well. There was the ice cream man who was kind of scary.
Yeah.
I wish the ice cream man didn't have to leave when the weather got cold in the winter. I wish he never went away.
That was weird. Okay, ice cream man.
Okay. First little scare of the
Nice
thing.
little monster. But then there were 2 other moments. One was with this character's Marco and Polo, which we mentioned earlier. They look scary up
From
close.
up close, yeah.
Then there's the man in the moon, like Méliès, moon face character, the crater face character with a moon shape. And it's Mr. Melancholy.
Mr. Melancholy,
There's Mr. Melancholy.
big bad.
Big bad. Look, Mr. Melancholy. So now we have another monster. The Moon Man, Man on the Moon. There we go. Again, more artsy rather than scary.
For me, is depression, basically.
Okay, because when it's Marco Polo, I thought that was really interesting, the characters of Marco and Polo. When you hear Marco Polo was a person's name, right? First, last. Then you have the situation where when you're a kid, you might play Marco Polo in the pool. You go Marco and then Polo, and you're closing your eyes and trying to find other people. And then you've got two people. One is
Two
called
women.
two characters.
Two women.
Women that also are made to look like traditional male, almost gnome-like
Facial hair,
leprechaun.
yeah.
They were dressed in a way that almost made me think of that. But they are Marco and Polo, which then made me think of a dual identity person named Marco Polo, and you rip that person apart and it becomes Marco and Polo, two sides of an identity. You do that already when you play Marco Polo, which is also weird. That's interesting about Mr. Melancholy. You felt that the Moon Méliès type of face, Man on the Moon character, was a form of depression.
It's like Marco Polo, a reflection of the Man on the Moon. And the element of Mr. Melancholy, like I said, I think it's depression. But where does that depression come from? In the context of this movie,
Yeah.
which is very interesting, but it's buried in there. Like I said, you gotta be Dr. Indiana Jones to go and find it. Is that a person who finds out the truth about him or herself and then refuses to see it and decides to just chuck it under the table, under the bed, will be fated to unhappiness, depression, and death. And there's a second call to adventure that's refused when Maddie, she comes back and then she says, hey, I have a spot behind the football field and I dug a hole and there's a coffin.
I can help you. She mentions that, and he doesn't take her up on it. In fact, he's violent,
Yeah.
pushes her down, and runs away. It was interesting because the character doesn't have there's no history of violence from what we could tell. Another scene that I thought was interesting. He comes home, he's watching the last episode, and then it looks like he's being sucked into the television. But he's trying to get in there. He wants to be in there. Oh. Oh my God. That's interesting. He's getting sucked into the television. Does he want to go in there?
Yeah.
Is that what's going
Yeah.
on? Oh. Oh, that's interesting. This is the moment where he finally, in my opinion, acknowledges that he wants to be there, because he says, this is not my life. This is not where I belong. I think he even says, you're not my dad, or you're not my family. And he's trying to get in there. The father, though, comes over and grabs him and takes him out. And I do want to mention something else about the father. We never hear anything from the father, except for when he's in the car driving. Mother is there. Owen's in the back seat, lying down in the back seat, by the way. Every single time we see Owen in the back seat of a car, he's lying down on the seat. I thought, well, is this a parallel universe where you only lie down on the back seat of a car? But he says he was talking about the Pink Opaque. He's trying to open up a bit to his parents.
That's what that is, yeah.
And the father says, isn't that a girl's show?
Yeah, that's pretty on the nose.
Yeah. Again, the father, who knows why he grabs him? It's almost like, is he trying to drag him back to what he thinks his reality should be? Is he discounting the fact that his son wants to commune in this other quote-unquote universe, which is really his identity, which is really her identity? And this is something that you had talked earlier about him wearing
This dress, but it's very subtle. It's
And it's
only
Isabel.
It's only seen from the point of view of the show, and it's from the back, and
Right.
you can tell that it's a dress.
Isabel is one of the characters.
One of the girls in the show.
This show, The
Yeah.
Pink Opaque. And it's clearly Owen dressed as Isabel, who maybe really is Isabel. And that's what the Pink Opaque represents to Owen. The character of Isabel is really Owen, and really what Owen's true identity is.
So as a transition between what's happening now in the movie and the next phase, there's going to be a time jump.
20 years.
There's 20-year time jump. And there's this interesting sequence where he gets rid of his old CRT TV, which I guess was already kind of destroyed. But
And his father died.
Yeah, his father dies. That happens first. His father
Oh,
dies.
we should mention the mother already died.
She died of
years
cancer.
before, way before of cancer, and then the father died.
In psychological terms, basically, his anima died. I think his mother died early, and that's his feminine. So when a man is growing up, his first idea of feminine is his mother. And then he never was able to really connect with his father, with the masculine side, right? But basically, the father dies. After the father dies, he says he decided to keep the house, and he gets rid of the CRT TV and buys a flat screen, and even says that now he has a family, whatever that means, because we never see it.
I don't know what he meant by the family
said it,
because
yeah,
we don't
yeah.
see anything. There's no one living there. That's interesting. I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that because I don't know what he meant by that.
And then
some
it's-
people, when they say family, some people mean friends who are their family.
What's interesting is that it's not an adopted family like you would have on youth that has a natural or birth family that doesn't accept them, so they have to find their tribe where they're accepted, where they're loved. It's not that. It's literally him saying, oh yeah, I stayed and I got a new TV and I have a family of my own. I think it's supposed to suggest that he's going to remain, quote unquote, straight, whatever that means.
But we
and
don't
that's-
see
But we don't
that.
see it.
We don't see that.
We don't see a
I
wife,
don't
we
know
don't
what
see
that
kids,
means.
so-
Yeah.
And then there's a time jump, and now he's this incredibly unhappy dude working with the same people from 20 years
Oh,
ago.
you forgot to mention, he said he has the new TV. I can stream the Pink Opaque.
Yeah.
He's alone in this house. I don't know where the family is, but he's there and he's streaming the Pink Opaque and he's seeing that the Pink Opaque looks very cheesy and cheap now.
Let's all have a soup party.
There have been shows like that where I look at
I
them
know.
later in life, I'm like, oh my god, they look really cheesy.
That's the best thing about this.
That's really interesting. Yeah. We had mentioned earlier that it already looked cheesy, but this is even cheesier. And it's more PG
Oh
than
my
it
God.
was before. And the scary, slobbery, melty Mr. Sprinkles, or whatever his name is, that character looks very innocuous.
Very kid friendly.
Very kid-friendly.
It's like going from one of those CW shows to like Disney Channel. You go from like having a little bit of an edge while still being fairly teen oriented to something that's definitely for like kids that are 10, 11.
Anyway, so now you're talking about
So-
another time jump. We don't know what that time jump is. Was not identified.
There's a time jump, a big one, and he's still working in the same place, this movie theater / amusement place.
I thought it was a new place called the Fun Center or something.
Yeah.
But the same people were there,
The same
which was
people were
weird.
there, yeah.
But they wouldn't all be there for
Yeah.
that long.
And he's very unhappy, and he has asthma, and he has a really hard time breathing, and he's dying. At some point, there's a kid in a machine with a bunch of money flying around, and I think that's a machine where you try to grab the money, and
like a
whatever you
Chuck E.
can hold
Cheese
on to, you
place.
can keep, or something like that.
Yeah.
And the machine says, I'm dying, or something like that, or
I
you're
am
dying. One of those.
Yeah.
He's roaming around the place and trying to sing happy birthday to a kid and do stuff, but he can hardly keep up with it. And at some point, he freaks out and screams, and people stop moving as if
Yeah.
none of that is
Statues.
real.
They're
Yeah.
like statues.
Yeah.
And he says, I think he says, I'm dying, help me or something.
Mm-hmm. And he collapses
Yeah.
on the ground.
And then
on
he
the
ends up in the
floor.
bathroom and someone checks on them. So we know that they did hear him,
Yeah.
which is
And
interesting.
they unpaused, clearly.
Yeah, they unpaused whatever. It was
Yeah.
like a remote control. You're right.
And then in the bathroom, he takes a scalpel or a knife, or I think it was a box cutter, to his chest. And as he opens his chest, almost like an autopsy,
Yeah.
doing a similar kind of cut,
Mm-hmm.
a vertical cut. He stands, and there's a TV inside him with the TV glow. So basically saying,
We assume. Yeah.
none of this is real. This is experience. Everything is not real. This is not who I really am.
Whatever's inside him, it was just glow coming from inside as he opened his wound. He went from chest all the way down to the
All
belly
the way to
button
his belly, yeah.
and just opened the whole area of the torso. And what I see it is his true self shining through, and he's at peace. He's alone in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
He's looking at himself in the mirror. The glow is coming through, and he is, or she, possibly, or non-binary, we don't know, is feeling the warmth of who this person really
the
is,
warmth
who
of
Owen really
acceptance.
is. Yeah, the warmth of acceptance of self. And then after that,
I think it ends there.
oh, we should also mention that there's a long monologue from the Maddie character. It was an important monologue, but I think you and I were like, oh my gosh, it was draggy. It
And it
was,
took
and it was
forever.
important. I think it was supposed to elucidate all of the components of what's going on, the whole idea of being buried, leaving your past behind, having your identity and doing this and that. And sadly, I don't think it fully connected with us to the point where we may not remember exactly what was stated. That was supposed to be the punchline.
I didn't really like the monologue.
The writing was just not up to par. Remember I said that there was a part right at the tail end of the movie, the very end of the movie, that made me cry. It was after he leaves the bathroom, he puts his vest and his shirt back on. He's still wheezing, and he walks through what is very much like a Chuck E. Cheese Dave and Buster's type of environment. And he's talking to patrons and coworkers, and everybody's ignoring him.
No one cares.
Like he is completely invisible, but he's apologizing to everybody for his outburst, but no one cares. He says, I'm so sorry. I was on medication and it wasn't working. I'm so sorry. He's wheezing. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was heartbreaking for me.
It's brutal.
That was heartbreaking.
Brutal.
Sorry about that before. Sorry about before. Just a new meditation and I'm sorry. I'm sorry about before. Sorry about that before. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Ah, that's painful. And if the rest of the movie had gotten me like that, or even a few more elements had gotten to me, I would have given it a thumbs up. But I have to give it a thumbs down, sadly.
It's because he's clearly suffering, and then we actually see his pain, we identify with his pain, finally.
We do.
And then we feel something. But
Yeah.
through most of this movie, I don't know
Yeah.
if it's the writing or the actor or the direction.
Right.
What is it?
Well, he
But
was
he's so
good, I
sedate.
think. I feel like he had more in him than some of the other characters that just
Yeah.
didn't feel like they had any range. He had range because he did have different things happen to him emotionally. He tried to get into the television. There were moments. I just feel like he was not directed in a way that would have allowed him to really be himself. And part of that is what the movie's about. And that's another thing we have to make sure people understand is that maybe this wooden acting was supposed to be conveying how you feel when you're all closed up and you can't really express yourself.
When you're locked up tight.
Yeah, but the problem is it doesn't translate well as a dramatic effect and doesn't necessarily speak to everybody. And that's the problem. But I think it was a good effort to kind of get some of these ideas out. It just didn't fully hit the mark.
Yeah, if every scene has a lot of silence between different lines and everything is kind of slowish, then there's no contrast. You know, I think this movie would have benefited from maybe a little harder edged editing.
And
allowing
script
allowing
changes.
the silences to get their spotlight, you know, to
Get
get their
their
time in
due.
the sun.
Yeah.
Versus just having silences, awkward silences everywhere
Yeah.
and kind of losing your audience. Because, like Ginny said, clearly he's acting in a way where he is having to hold back and hide his true self from the world. And that's communicated very well. But if you're going to have really kind of slow pace and slow editing and
Yeah.
all those awkward silences, it's harder for you as the audience to really be there with them.
But I feel like it wasn't communicated very well until the end, with the exception of him trying to get into the television. That scene was communicated well. But I feel like it was, I don't want to say too little too late, but it was just too late. It was too late in the movie to have this kind of realization. It was way too long at the beginning. I understand what you're saying about the editing, but I really think it was the script. Spending that amount of time on that monologue, which I feel like was not compelling. It just didn't work. And I don't need to hear a monologue necessarily from the Maddie character anyway. I want to hear from him. I
Yeah.
want to hear from Owen, who is having a hard time expressing who he
he
really
is,
is.
yeah.
Or who she really is.
A movie like this that's an hour and 40 minutes long, there's some fat in there for sure. This thing had to be an hour and 28 minutes or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a fairly
know.
short film. They might have cut a lot anyway. They would have had to cut a lot more. But again, I just think that you could swap in better writing in certain moments and it wouldn't have dragged.
Yeah, make it more scary, you know, like
Yeah.
take your audience on a ride with you.
Right.
And,
Or-
and maybe don't be so, cryptic about your themes.
Obtuse. I really feel like it didn't have to be a horror film, though. This could have been a very interesting drama that could have been just a surreal art film. It didn't have to be a horror film. I think if we want to go in the direction of horror, it needed more of those elements. There's a lot of horror in this topic. When someone is not able to express who they are, it can be a dreadful feeling, and at the end, it was heartbreaking, and that could have just been so much more impactful as a horror film.
Jeannie is making a great point, and she's making me think of Heavenly Creatures, which is not a horror film. There's violence, and there's imagination and fantasy. Mm-hmm. And it's about an awakening of a girl who finds out she's a lesbian.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So Peter Jackson did that one, right?
Right.
Look what he did in Heavenly Creatures.
Right. And having there's surreal elements in there. There are several surreal elements.
The whole fantasy world that's created and their shared fantasy.
Universe. Yeah.
And like Jeannie said, a fantasy universe. Like, look at all those elements and how it's basically like a fantasy drama that has some violence in it. Horror sells, and it's cheaper to make in general.
But
so maybe that's why it was done this way.
It's not a horror film.
But it's not a horror film.
No, it doesn't have enough horror in it. I wouldn't even label it as such.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this needed to bill itself as a horror film. And I think it needed to go in one direction or another. But I also feel like the relationships between the characters was lacking. That is one of the biggest character development problems I have, where you have these isolated characters trying to communicate with each other, but not really doing so, and sort of monologuing at each other. And then Owen is an observer more than anything else, but doesn't observe enough. And this Pink Opaque series wasn't compelling enough.
No.
It was very superficial.
Cheap. Yeah. It didn't match what you would see on TV around that time.
But it was superficial for something that's supposed to be symbolic of an awakening.
I agree.
It was too superficial. And a lot of this was very surface for something that's supposed to be so deep and so visceral. And it only got there at the end.
Yeah. And I will say that, as horror fans, we saw some potential here in terms of the theme and the photography and the locations. Mm-hmm. It's all wasted.
Yeah.
The liminal space stuff is thrown into the trash right in the beginning.
Right.
Mr. Sparkles, the melting version of it. Scary thing.
Oh, so it's Sparkles, not Sprinkles. Mr. Sparkles.
It's Sprinkles. I just called him Sparkles.
Whoa, no, you might be right.
So Mr. Sprinkles is wasted. There's so many interesting elements here. You can do a story about finding out who you are and then just refusing that call over and over again and then having to pay a heavy price for it without just abandoning all that gold you uncovered doing your pre-production, doing your writing process, writing the script. So if you don't want to make a horror movie, by all means, don't make it a horror movie. But if you are making horror, take advantage of the genre. Leverage the genre. Go for it.
So the whole time we've said it wrong. Mr. Sprinkly.
So Jeannie just did some ninja Googling, and it's called
Mr. Sprinkly.
Mr. Sprinkly. So I guess someone can go make a horror movie about Mr. Sparkles and Mr.
Sprinkles. Do we have anything else to add?
We do not, and it's still a thumbs down for me.
Yep.
Because the one thing a movie can never do to me is bore me. And sadly, I was quite bored.
Yeah, even if it had a compelling message. And that message wasn't really understood until the very end. Or let's say it might have been understood earlier, but it didn't hit us in a way that was dramatic or compelling enough until the very end. But again, it's not a horror film, but I wouldn't give it bad marks because of that. There are some other elements that make it a thumbs down for me.
If it was well-paced and moved, and moved us early, even if you wasted all the horror elements, I would have given a thumbs up.
Yeah.
For sure.
So both of us, thumbs down.
4 thumbs down.
So it's 2 thumbs down. Ha ha ha. It's a no.
4 necks up and a right side arm leg thing.
Thumbs down for both of us.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't watch it.
Right. We're always going to say that.
You should always watch these.
We always feel that it's important to understand what a filmmaker is trying to do. And I think in this case, the topic is interesting enough and the effort was there.
It's worthwhile.
probably an important film in some ways. So in that sense, check it out. But if you're only trying to watch horror, don't bother.
Yeah, if you're just a horror
Don't
fan
bother.
and you think this is going to be like a cool Saturday night scary thing to watch, it's not.
And I think that it's misleading because it's an intriguing title and it makes it look like it's going to be a standard, almost like a 70s horror film. And it's not at all. So I think that's misleading marketing.
So remember, when we give something a thumbs up or a thumbs down, it's opinion. And it's our opinion as moviegoers, people who study film, who work in the industry like Jeannie has. It doesn't mean you should never watch it. It's opinion. But we do feel that all of these small independent movies that we like to feature in this podcast deserve your attention and deserve your support.
So I guess we can sign off for now.
Yes, we're signing off.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
Until next time.
Boo.